Hey, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another video. This time I want to talk about the Forced Ejection Mass Saiyan. So this is a card that's been seeing a lot of play recently, and it's been getting talked about quite a lot as a side deck counter to the kind of the SS3 meta. So if we look at the results back at the LA Regionals, the final was actually between this Vegeta Energy Lock deck and the Blue Yellow Hirudegarn deck. So it seemed like in terms of that, SS3 kind of got phased out. There is kind of the superstition, I guess you can call it, or the stereotype that West Coast is really big on aggro and East Coast is really big on like mid-range control, but that might be an outlier to that. But regardless of the fact, I mean, being an SS3 player myself, these aggro decks give S3 a huge run for their money. I really think the matchup is more favorable for the aggro decks, especially if you activate your leader effect and don't flip a blue and your senzu beans are dead. And if you don't go first, you have a really big disadvantage against this deck. But I want to talk about the Forced Ejection Max Saiyan because honestly, at first, I wasn't super duper sold about this as a good counter to SS3. You know, I know it like blows up one of their energies and that whole thing, and it's supposed to be really solid against them for evening out the matchup. But I wasn't really sold on it at first. But after the events and the results of this past weekend, I kind of am a little bit more sold on it. So I want to talk about kind of just some talking points about the card, talk about this energy lock deck, and talk about like why the card is pretty good. But first I want to go over to a Super Players video where they profiled Chris Welch's video for his LA regional win. Shout out to Shenron's Lair, shout out to Chris, shout out to Marcus, shout out to Caleb. I know these guys have been playtesting like madmen, so great for them to pull home a win for this regional. But yeah, we're going to see what Chris has to say about the Forced Ejection Mass Saiyan in his side deck for his Blue Yellow Hirudegarn deck.
This guy wasn't that good. SS3, what really happened was Forced Ejection.
You actually had that. That's cool.
Yeah, this guy's nuts. Dude. Every SS3 deck I played, I decided it in, and yeah, it was just
you pulled
absolutely
it off.
nuts.
Just
Every time. Yeah, like turn one, like turn two, pretty much on your 2 energy turns. Instead of playing a 3, you play this guy and you kill their blue energy or whatever, their green energy, blue energy, whatever it is. You just kill them through it. So this guy is almost too good, I think. Almost too good. It was against that deck.
There you guys have it.
So almost too good according to Chris Welch, and it seems like a very, very solid side deck card. So when you're playing like these aggro decks, you go second, and a lot of times you want to go turn 2 kill, but a lot of times that's facilitated by like your Ape Bardock or your Scientist Fu. But this card is really, really strong because like Chris said in the video, you warp their up energy, so they just have way less to defend. If they're playing a blue-red strategy, you warp their blues. Typically when you're playing against SS3 blue-red, they leave up 1 blue and 2 red. So you warp their 1 blue. They still may have access to a topo or Vados assistance if they're playing it, but they really can't access senzu bean, which is incredibly important in this matchup. So side note to keep in mind, if you're an SS3 player, you probably want to keep up 2 blues against this if you're afraid of this lock. But yeah, super solid card because you can warp active energy, and that's a really, really important thing about it. So it does seem like a pretty solid side deck card for these aggro decks. However, it kind of poses the question of, is it only good in aggro? And the reason I kind of say that is because this card doesn't seem as great in a mid-range matchup, like SS3 versus some other mid-range deck. It doesn't seem as good just because you don't have access to as much energy manipulation, especially if you're not playing a blue leader. And it does seem a little bit low impact, because yeah, you'll even out the energy advantage between them, but you won't be able to take advantage of it as these aggro decks will be able to, in terms of you warp their blue energy or their up energy that they're going to use to defend, or their green for their full powers, and then you can kill them through that. So this doesn't seem as high impact for other mid-range strategies that want to combat SS3. It still does seem like a solid side deck choice because of the fact that it evens out the playing field and you give them less energy to defend themselves with. However, it does seem a little bit less high impact. And with these aggro decks, some mid-range decks, it's kind of difficult to fuel the Overrealm by 3 cards that early. Even by like turn 2, 3, it's kind of difficult for mid-range decks to do that without going too neg, without comboing needlessly or things like that. One of the reasons it's so good in aggro is because you're trying to kill someone by turn 2, you're comboing like crazy, you have your flutes to re-abuse your Gotens, and you're filling the drop like an absolute madman. That's not really happening too much in other mid-range strategies. Without, like I said, without negging too hard. So now that poses another question. With Flute going to 1, it poses kind of 2 questions. How good is aggro going to be with Flute at 1? I hear a lot of people saying it's going to be very, very good. Still, I've heard a lot of people say it's not going to be as good. I definitely think it's going to be weaker. I definitely do think that. because Flute to add your Gotenks back to your hand to then dropping in with your Bardox and keep just recycling this loop here, this 3-card loop, is incredibly strong for aggro. I don't think it's going to necessarily be like dead in the water. I don't think it's like completely dead. I just think it'll become a little bit more fair. But with that kind of being said, it does kind of mean that this Mass Saiyan might once again be a little bit lower impact, because if you really can't kill someone by turn 2 and you have to move that kill turn to turn 3, well, it just seems like it's a little bit weird. That might not be as much of an issue either, because this Force Ejection Max Saiyan is a big key piece to this new Ultimate Box Vegeta Leader Energy Lock deck. So, alright, so we'll see what this Force Ejection Max Saiyan does. Then I'll tell you guys what the Explosive Power Vegeta Leader does, and we'll see kind of how this interaction works. So, 3-drop Force Ejection Max Saiyan, Overwhelm 1, activate main once per turn. If you have placed a card in your energy area during your charge phase this turn, and that part is key, and you have less energy than your opponent, choose one of your opponent's energy and send it to their warp. So the fact that this is activate main is actually really, really insane, because you can actually hard cast this guy for 3 energy and then use his effect continuously. So that might have been a little bit of oversight on Bandai's part. I think that's a little bit crazy, but it's really, really crazy with this Vegeta deck, because you kind of set up an energy lock on your opponent. So the Explosive Power Vegeta, the important part for this video is on the Awakened side, when it attacks, you may choose any energy in your energy area, add it to your hand, and then you may choose to, or may choose not to, place an energy back down on the field. New energy in active mode. So the whole thing with this is it's another blue-yellow aggro storm deck. You know, you play your 1-drop Bardox, you play your Gotenks, and you don't really need more than 2 energy to kill your opponent realistically. You know, a lot of these decks do kill on turn 2. So the typical play is, you know, you'll go Force Ejection Mass Saiyan on 3 if you're playing against the SS3. You do that, you awaken, so you untap 2, and then you go, you know, leader attack, bring your rested energy back to your hand, and then you choose not to play an energy down. So that means if your opponent went first, they should be on 4 energy when you put them back down to 3. And if you went first as Vegeta, you'll be on 3 energy when your opponent's at 3 energy as SS3. So technically it will be evened out until their next turn. But when you hard cast this Mass Saiyan for 3 and you awaken, do your shenanigans, things like that, your opponent will actually be set back down at energy. So it'll actually be as if they had went second, which seems like a fair case. When you're talking about SS3 who gets an advantage on energy, why shouldn't there be a card that drops them back in energy? I'm not saying this card is unfair by any means, but the fact that there's a soft energy lock here is kind of, you know, not great for the game, because you can energy lock almost any other deck, at least if you do go second. If you you know, only charge at 3 and you continue to loop your leader effect to just like get an energy back and then only charge at 3, you know, you can kind of lock your opponents that like 3, 4, sometimes even 2 energy lock. So it's kind of a stupid combo. You know, it's just not fun for people involved. It's really not fun. But the fact that it's a thing is very useful to know. But like I said, the question posed is, you know, how strong has this become post Flute errata? I'm not exactly sure. You know, like I said, these decks aren't going to be able to fill the drop quite as fast. They theoretically won't be able to kill as fast. So it doesn't make the Ejection Saiyan a little more low impact. I'm not sure. I kind of want to say it will make it a little less high impact, as well as the fact that once Flute does get hit, aggro gets hit, and SS3 might just, you know, jump to the top again. However, if this card can still see some competitive play, this might actually kind of push Mass Saiyan out the door. So there's a lot of kind of debate up in the air, you know, to see how strong this card is. It's definitely a very strong factor with Flute at 4. With Flute at 4, this card's an incredibly strong factor. On the West Coast, it completely pushed out SS3 basically from the entire LA regional tournament. So that result does speak for itself. My question is, how does this fare in the future in terms of aggro getting neutered by Flute going to 1? And what does this mean for the future of the game with this Vegeta energy lock deck, where you can almost energy lock like any of your opponent's decks? So yeah, this card definitely does have answers, this Mass Saiyan, you know, in the form of a generic kind of answer. There's Sun Goten Family of Justice. During your turn, when you combo this card, choose up to 1 of your opponent's battle cards, energy cost 3 or less, and KO it. Then there's the new Sidra, the Ultimate Box blocker auto. When you play this card, you may choose 1 card in your life, add it to your hand. If you do so, choose up to 1 of your opponent's battle cards with energy cost equal to or less than your opponent's energy, your energy, and KO it. So when you're on 3, you'll cast this and kill the Mass Saiyan. So there are answers to this. The kind of problem might arise with this type of energy lock deck with how much can they actually do on top of casting this Mass Saiyan. If all their turn was casting the Mass Saiyan and blowing me back in energy, you know, that once again, that's like it's a really good play, but it's also like way less impactful than if they're hard casting this Mass Saiyan, blowing me back in energy, and then like getting off 9 attacks on top of that with Bardock and Goten. That's really high impact. That's really strong. That's like, you know, that's like potentially like way too good. That's really strong. That's a lot of value on just your 2 energy play, and that's because, you know, Blue has access to so many untaps with Sensu Bean and Unyielding Spirit Trunks. So if that's the case, you know, that's really strong, and that's like a really strong energy lock because you're putting so much pressure on your opponent additionally that you know, just going back to 3 energy and being able to only blow up the Mass Saiyan but not also deal with the other problems on the board like the Gotens and like being able to defend all the damage that they just took. That's a really strong combination of things that can kind of become a little bit too powerful if unchecked. But like I said, with Flu going to 1, this aggro is theoretically getting nerfed, so that may not be an issue going forward. It might just be a cool deck that kind of just hits up the energy lock, you know, does some Bardock Goten shenanigans, and it might not be as crazy because Flute will be at 1. So that's kind of what my opinions are on this Force Ejection Max Saiyan, the energy lock deck, how it might be looking going into the future. So yeah, guys, let me know what you guys think about this. Let me know what you guys think about the Mass Saiyan as a side deck card to SS3. Does it completely blow out SS3? Does it, you know, is it a fair card? You know, what do you think about the energy lock deck? I know a lot of people don't think it's very fun. I can agree with that. You know, any like floodgate like deck that's like over border control, it's really not fun to play against a lot of the times. But like I said, if their turns become less high impact because of Flu going to 1, then it'll become a little bit more balanced. And then, like I said, there are answers to it. You know, there is a Sidra for blue, there is a Sun Goten for generic removal. Just to name a couple ways to get rid of it. So, yeah, guys, let me know what you guys do think about this video. Let me know what you guys think about the Force Ejection Mass Saiyan. If you like videos like this that kind of go in depth and talk about popular cards in the meta, please let me know. I really enjoy making videos like this. So, yeah, guys, with that being said, my name's Joey. If you like this video, please consider subscribing to Crossroad TCG, and I will see you next time.